You're listening to the Turnaround Podcast, the true life basketball story of Bull City's own Stewart Squirt Holley.
Yo, man, this beat crazy.
I was definitely charged with a serious charge as a teenager. It was an assault charge, and to this day, that still follows behind me because it was a felony assault charge. So I was placed on probation for that charge, and what actually landed me to prison was just making the wrong decisions and hanging with the wrong people in the midst of making those bad choices. Just on the inside, just being misguided, hard-headed. So I go do this thing, catch this assault charge, right? And I was all wrong, totally wrong for it. There's no other way around it. I was totally in the wrong. So I want to say this was like maybe summer of 92, maybe 92, 93. And a couple of other fellas in the neighborhood, they had some things going on, and the police was just in that neighborhood. So I do that and catch this charge and placed on probation for it because they didn't have no weapon or the victim didn't want to testify. So I got placed on probation. And while on probation, this is what actually got me incarcerated. I one night goes out with some guys from middle school and high school. My mom had went out of town this particular weekend, and one of the main things she told me before she left the house was, don't go out here and get yourself in no trouble. You know, you got to work over the weekend. Matter of fact, I was so young, I had just got a job. I was working at a Bojangles on Guest Road. That was my first job. I was that young where she had to sign a worker's permit for me to work there, so that lets you know how young I was. So she left, went out of town, and I'm home, and a few fellas come over. And some guys from outside of the neighborhood that, like I said, I went to middle school with, high school with, they came over also. And they wasn't my close friends or my everyday friends. They was just friends from school, and we was all same circle. So but they came over, and they was already like some little hotheads from the neighborhood they was from. They was some bunch of chunks. Anyway, they come over, and they wants to go out, you know what I'm saying, and start some fights. So me being young, dumb, misguided, and just stupid, I said, shit, like that Phil Collins thing. I can feel it in the air. Yeah, let's go do something. So us three decided to rise out, and my closest friends was there. And they was like, nah, bro, you don't need to leave with them. You don't need to go with them. You know, they on some negativity shit. You don't need to go with them, bro. Chill. We at your house. I left to go anyway, being stupid. So we rise and came up on some boys that used to like to hang out at one of the little local gas stations. And it was just after a time that was sensitive because we had lost one of the brothers at this particular gas station. So because of this particular crowd that's allowed to hang out at this gas station. So we see them hanging out at the gas station. So us three, it's probably about 15 of them. We pulls over. We say, yeah, we're gonna start right here. So we pulls over. They hanging out, sitting out on their cars like they at the club. So we'll pull up on them. We hop out and we like, what's up? And all three of us just went in each direction and just start connecting. And it was crazy because it was more of them than it was us. It was three of us and probably like 12, 15, you know, of them. And they had girls with them. But once we got out the car and commenced the ass whooping, they scattered like roaches, and it was just crazy. So the guys that I was with, what they did was they took out some sticks and bats, and they ended up beating some of the boys with those sticks and those bats and took money from those boys. Now, that's why I drew the line. I didn't do that. the boys that I beat out there that night, I beat with my hand. So if anything, then I'm guilty by association of anything, but I didn't actually perpetrate that act of beating them with sticks and bats, which is a weapon. I was already on probation for that shit. But again, that's just being wrong place, wrong time, doing something you ain't got no business doing. So we end up hopping in the cars and like, yeah, that's what they get. That's what they get, punk motherfuckers. Like, we just hyped, amped up. So these guys dropped me back off at home right after that. And my boys were still there. And they're like, damn, man, what y'all boys done did? But like, none, you know. So those two guys left. Should have never been with those two chumps. And I don't need to call their names out. They know who they are. So, but they left that night, and we was in an old school yellow Impala, which stood out. Even in the mid-90s, it stood out. And it was nice. It wasn't a hoopty. It was nice. So by that time, these guys had to call the police, gave a description of the car, said it was 3 of them. So they end up finding these guys out and about, pulled that Impala over, arrested those 2 guys. And how I found out about it was during the summer. One of my little homeboys, he like a younger brother to me. My boy didn't even go to summer school that day. He knocks on the door one early morning, like Monday, Tuesday morning or something like that, mad at me with the newspaper in his hand. So I said, well, what's going on? And he said, man, you ain't seen the paper, man? I said, no. He showed me the paper, and they done arrested them 2, got my face all in the crime log. Police claim they looking for me and act like I'm a fugitive from the law. This happened over the weekend. It was in the paper, I think either that Monday or Tuesday. I don't remember, but that's how I found out. One of the boys knocked on my door with the crime log and newspaper and showed my picture. I said, well, damn. So I went into hide right after that, which is crazy because I was right across the street. Right after that, seemed like later that day, they ended up, the police surrounded my mom's apartment looking for me. And I watched the whole thing from across the street. I had already told my moms about it. I told her about it when I found out about it. When my boy knocked on the door with me in the paper, I called my moms and told her about it because I didn't want her to hear it from nowhere else first. So I called her and told her about it like immediately. And then after that, like I said, I hid across the street. So before I was even found, I decided to turn myself in listening to somebody. I don't remember who it was, but after a couple of days of them keep coming by my mama's house, police, detectives, and all of that, I eventually said, I'm just going to go and turn myself in, which after that, I stayed gone for about 2.5 years. So that's how I initially got to prison. And before I was even found guilty or not guilty on those charges, I was already on probation for a violent felony. So they charged me with like 3 other assault with a deadly weapon, inflicting serious injury charges, and 1 robbery with a dangerous weapon charge. Before they either found me guilty or not guilty on those charges, they violated me on my probation. And that's what sent me to prison. And while I was in prison, they was bringing me back and forth from the state prisons to the county jail. And eventually the charges ended up getting dropped, which was a blessing because I didn't do what I was charged with. I didn't do that. If I did, I would have owned up to it. So while I was there, I embraced where I was at, meaning prison, because I felt like that's where I was supposed to be. I felt like I earned my right to be in prison because I was out there doing dumb shit, ignorant shit, and that was my reward. And I wasn't the average inmate. And what I mean by that, I used my time because I felt like I had to let my mama down. So what I did was I used my time. I read, I studied, and I went out on the yard. I would play basketball at my disposal. If I saw negativity going on the yard, then I wouldn't go out there and put myself in that simply because I wasn't in prison to try to see how much time I could pull. Okay, I'm going to do my time. I'm going to come on home. So while I was there, I seen a lot of things, taught me a whole nother world. And how to survive is not even the word I'm searching for to describe it, but being in prison, it'll mature you in ways that you just won't learn anywhere else. You're just in constant danger 24 hours, 7 days a week, and it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. Everybody that goes to prison ain't guaranteed to come out of prison. Anybody. You're not guaranteed to come out of there. So I was sentenced to 5 years, and I did like 2.5 off the 5. I earned my GED while I was there because the things I was doing in high school, which led me to prison, didn't allow me to graduate with my class originally like I was supposed to. That was something that always bothered me because my age mates weren't doing those type of things, and they walked across that stage and made their mamas proud versus I didn't. So while I was there, I just felt like I couldn't come home and do the same things again. So that's what sparked something in me to change my way, because I didn't hurt my moms enough. Certain friends, a lot of middle school homegirls that I went to high school with also, they wrote me letters, visitations. My homeboys, they know who they is, same thing, wrote me visitations. And that helped to keep me grounded and sane. So there was big support from them, like almost like 8 different people that constantly stayed in touch. So I appreciate them for that. And they know who they are. Matter of fact, still got those letters. So, but in some of the inmates while I was in there, as far as basketball goes, my moms would pretty much put money on my canteen, but how I actually earned money while I was on North Carolina Department of Corrections was through my basketball skills. I step out there on the court, and it was like Dominique Toretto anytime he raced on Fast and Furious. It was gold. So that's how I earned canteen while I stayed down those 2.5 years. Like I said, I just put a combination of what I learned from playing high school basketball to playing in the streets to now being incarcerated. I learned how to combine those 3 elements, and this is what you get. You know what I'm saying? A talent that was good enough that had to finally mature, and that's what helped get me international. The style of play in prison. The game is physical in prison. There are no referees that's going to blow their whistles. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no teammates and fans coming to help you on that yard if you know what I'm saying, this dude right here don't agree with something and y'all decide y'all gonna put them hands in the air. So that's the real of that. That's just as raw as it gets. That's just as raw as it gets. And I dominated certain prison camps. Troy, North Carolina, they know what's up. Down at Southern Correctional. At that time I was there, I even feel like some of the guards gave me a little respect, just how I conducted myself. I didn't run with no gangs, didn't believe in that, don't believe in that, and I don't disrespect if somebody else in the gang, if that's what they do, no matter what I think about a gang. But, I didn't run with no gang, I ain't need to. So, but I did convert my spirituality over while I was there, and a part of a growth that I embraced, and that's probably one of the main reasons why my mom's like, I don't, I told you my mom, she was probably against me putting these things out there in that world because she don't want people to judge me from my past. But like I said, I'm not worried about anyone judging me from my past. They do, then they the ones who got some issues within themselves. Those things make me who I am today. Those experiences made me the basketball player that I am. And that drive was always in me. I loved basketball so much, even though I was incarcerated, I still found time to work on my basketball game while I was in prison and in jail. Just God giving me the ability to do that. And it takes for me to get incarcerated to kind of nurture my skills, because I nurtured my skills while I was there. And I knew while I lay, in their prison dormitories, in the back of my mind that one day I would play basketball again. I just didn't know how, when, or where, but I just felt like my basketball life hadn't even begun yet, because I always think about basketball in the back of my mind, the game. So I came home, and that's when I began working for the city of Durham. Some of the habits that I picked up to make me turn around was make sure I pray at least 5 times a day. I still carry myself that way to this day, whether they be small prayers. But I find time even to this day that's something that I did not do prior to me going to prison. I never prayed, you know what I'm saying, especially 5 times a day. And I knew about the Lord, was raised in the Baptist home. So, I picked up that habit. That's something that I still do. I always make sure I give grace, you know what I'm saying, over my food. Those are habits that I discipline on myself while I spent that time down like that. And some of the books stood out to me that I read, and most of those books I own to this day. Went out and bought copies so I could have in my library. My favorite book that I've read in its entirety, written by William Cooper, published in 1991, Behold a Pale Horse. I read that book twice in my lifetime. I need to read it again because it's so informative. Fall of America, written by Elijah Muhammad. And I own a copy of that book also. Great book. And I don't want to scare too many people, so I don't know if I want to keep naming some books that I've read. But I read those books for self-empowerment and knowledge and awareness. So those were some of the books that I read to sharpen my mind. Those books taught me things that confirmed that the things I was taught in school, that we all get taught in school, that traditional education system that they give all American citizens in school systems nationwide, bunch of lies. That might ruffle some people's feathers. But at the end of the day, I didn't write history. So I know a lot of people, they have a hard time dealing with facts. A lot of people have a hard time opening their minds. So I opened my mind while I was in prison, and I thought positivity simply because I just did not want to hurt my mom any longer. I felt like my mom hadn't been through enough bullshit. And all I was doing was just adding on to it. And I didn't realize that until I was sitting in prison. And she would come see me every visitation, even when they were shipping me throughout the state to different prison camps. My moms would come see me every visitation. And a lot of guys never didn't get that from their moms, if they had visitations at all. So that's tough. So to any dude out there, if you know what I'm saying, if you out there and you act like you're not a mama's boy, you don't love your moms, and that's you. Because at some point, I think we all mama's boys. Little boys, we know how we do when our mamas come around. We love our daddies. I love my dad and I respect my dad. My dad and my daddy. He the only one I got. But my mama. So I didn't want to, she'd already been through enough. So I just didn't want to keep letting her down or embarrassing her. That was my single most drive. And that was the intricate element in the struggle, and still is for me, just because when you're charged with those type of charges, it scares certain people, and that's all they see. Was I wrong for what I did? Fuck yeah, I'd be the first one to say that, because like I said, I was acting out of an immature mindset, and I'm just thankful that I mentally awoke out of that prison. You know what I'm saying? That I awoke out of that darkness, because that's what it was. It was just darkness being dumb. And that's the main reason for the turnaround, to get that message out there to people who are like me. You made that mistake. You pay your consequences for that mistake and you move on. But others don't allow you to move on because it's thrown in your face when you go try to apply for a job or a career. And at the end of the day, all I want is for them, along with myself, to be able to provide, not just for ourselves, but for those we love most, our family, those types of things. Be productive and active in the community and society. If you can't do that, then they have a place for you.
This has been a Vanguard Podcast Network original. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Turnaround Podcast, and follow the Turnaround Podcast on Instagram by clicking the link in the show notes. If you'd like to book Stewart Holley for a speaking engagement or to be a guest on your show, please reach out to theturnaround77@gmail.com, and someone will get back to you within 48 hours. Thank you for listening.
Yo, man.